Have you ever met someone who seemed just right? Charming, confident, the kind of person who walks into a room and immediately knows how to say all the right things. Maybe they made you feel seen, understood, even special, but somewhere along the way, something didn't feel quite right. Maybe it was a subtle shift in their tone, or the way they twisted your words just enough to make you second-guess yourself, or how every conversation seemed to turn into a performance, one where you weren't sure what was real anymore. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Psychopaths walk among us every single day, and they're not lurking in dark alleys or faraway crime documentaries. No, they're at the office, at family gatherings, sometimes even in your own home. What makes them so dangerous isn't that they look different, it's that they don't. They blend in perfectly, and that's what makes them so hard to spot until it's too late. According to research, about 1% of the population exhibits psychopathic traits. That may sound like a small number, but think about it. If you've met 100 people in your life, chances are you've already crossed paths with one, maybe more, and you didn't even know it. These individuals are masters of manipulation. They know how to wear the mask, how to say the right things, act the right way, and make you doubt the one person you should always trust, yourself. They don't just lie, they reshape your reality. And by the time you realize what's happening, they've already drained your energy, undermined your confidence, and left you questioning your own sanity. That's why this video matters. Because today, I'm going to walk you through 5 unmistakable signs that you might be dealing with a psychopath. Not based on theory, but on patterns, stories, and behaviors that countless people, maybe even you, have encountered and suffered through. So I have one simple request. Don't skip ahead. Don't brush this off thinking, this isn't relevant to me. Because if you've ever felt confused in a relationship, emotionally manipulated, or like you were walking on eggshells for someone who seemed so nice, this video could shine a light on what's really been happening. What you're about to learn might just save you years of emotional pain and help you reclaim your peace, your power, and your sense of self. Let's get started. 1. Superficial charm and love bombing. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever met someone who swept you off your feet from the very first moment? Maybe it was the way they looked at you, like they really saw you, or how they remembered the tiniest details you mentioned just once in passing. Your favorite childhood snack, the band you loved in high school, the kind of person who made you think, finally, someone who just gets me. At first it feels magical, almost too good to be true. And maybe that's exactly what it is. You see, when you're dealing with a psychopath, the danger doesn't always come wrapped in red flags. It often comes wrapped in charm, polished, magnetic, and perfectly calculated. This is sign number 1, superficial charm and love bombing. Psychopaths don't come storming into your life waving warning signs. They glide in, smooth, attentive, and seemingly flawless. Their charm is their greatest weapon, and they've mastered how to use it. But here's what most people miss. It's not real charm, it's a performance. It's not about connection, it's about control. They'll flood your life with compliments. You're so different from anyone I've ever met. I've never felt this way about someone so fast. They'll send good morning texts before you even wake up, bring surprise coffee to your office, and tell you how amazing you are within days of knowing you. It's overwhelming, and that's the point. This isn't kindness, it's love bombing. A manipulative tactic meant to fast-track intimacy and bypass your emotional boundaries. And it works frighteningly well because it makes you feel seen, validated, and safe. But here's where it gets dark. The moment you don't give them what they want, maybe you disagree with something or set a small boundary, that same warm, affectionate person can go ice cold in a heartbeat. No explanation, no conversation, just withdrawal, silence, maybe even subtle punishment, and your mind scrambles to make sense of it. Maybe I overreacted. They're just having a bad day. Did I do something wrong? That confusion? That self-blame? It's all part of the manipulation. It keeps you chasing the version of them you met in the beginning, the one who felt like a dream come true. But that version, it was never real. What you saw was a crafted persona, perfectly tailored to your desires, like a costume designed specifically to appeal to you. If you love nature, suddenly they're hikers. If you're passionate about charity, they've got a story ready about a mission trip that never happened. It's not compatibility, it's camouflage. They scan you for your hopes, your wounds, your soft spots, and then they become exactly who you want them to be, but only for as long as it serves their purpose. And what's worse, many intelligent, self-aware people fall for this, not because they're weak, but because psychopaths are experts at emotional reconnaissance. They know how to find what you're missing and temporarily fill that gap with attention, affection, and validation. But here's your signal. If someone seems too perfect, too fast, hit pause. Ask yourself, why does this feel like a movie instead of real life? Are they truly connecting with me or mirroring me? Am I being seen or targeted? Your gut often knows before your mind catches up. That little whisper that says, this is moving fast, or nobody is this flawless. Listen to it. Because when someone's charm feels like a spell, chances are it's not love, it's a strategy. And the moment you break that illusion, the mask falls. That's when the real person shows up. And trust me, it's not the one you thought you knew. So remember this first warning sign. Charm that feels like a performance isn't connection, it's control. And if you spot it early, it might just save you from a world of heartbreak later. Let's move on to the next red flag, because this is just the beginning. 2. Pathological lying and gaslighting. Have you ever tried to explain something that clearly happened, only to be told it never did? You remember the words, you remember the moment, you remember how it made you feel, but somehow you end up questioning yourself, wondering if you imagined the whole thing. If that sounds familiar, you may have been caught in one of the most dangerous and disorienting psychological traps there is. Gaslighting, a classic tactic of pathological liars. This brings us to sign number 2 that you're dealing with a psychopath: pathological lying and gaslighting. Now let's get something straight. We all lie from time to time, maybe to protect someone's feelings, maybe to avoid an awkward moment. But this isn't that. Psychopaths lie not to avoid discomfort, but to control the truth. They lie when they don't need to. They lie when it would be easier to tell the truth. Why? Because for them, the truth isn't useful. It's just an obstacle. Imagine this. You're holding a blue coffee mug. You point to it and say, "Look, it's blue." And the person across from you looks straight into your eyes and says, "No, it's red." Not joking, not uncertain, just firm. And they say it with so much confidence that after a while you start thinking, wait, maybe the lighting is weird. Maybe it's a shade of purple I'm misinterpreting. That's gaslighting. It's not about facts. It's about making you doubt your ability to trust your own mind. You'll hear phrases like, "I never said that," even though they did. You're imagining things. You're just being too sensitive. That never happened. Little by little, your reality starts to bend. And here's the terrifying part. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow erosion, a chipping away of your confidence, your clarity, and your sense of self. The goal? To make you the unreliable narrator of your own life. And it doesn't stop with one-on-one manipulation. Psychopaths often use a tactic called triangulation, spreading different versions of the truth to different people. They'll tell you, "James doesn't really trust you," and then tell James, "You said something behind his back." Now you're isolated, you don't know who to trust, and guess who becomes the only person you can turn to? Them. But here's what makes their lies especially hard to catch. They're not always entirely false. In fact, the best lies often contain a sliver of truth. just enough reality to make it believable, like a half-cooked story that feels off, but not false enough to question outright. And when you do catch them, when you finally gather the courage to say, "This doesn't add up," they still won't admit it. They'll deny, deflect, and twist the story until you're the one apologizing. You might find yourself saying things like, "I'm sorry if I misunderstood. Maybe I overreacted. I guess I remembered it wrong." Number, you didn't. You were manipulated. Gaslighting isn't just frustrating, it's psychologically devastating. It destabilizes your sense of what's real and makes you emotionally dependent on the person who's hurting you. And if you've been through this, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are being controlled. One of the most powerful things you can do is recognize this pattern and take a step back. If you find yourself constantly confused around someone, constantly second-guessing your memory, constantly feeling like you're walking on emotional quicksand, it's time to pay attention. Because that's not love. That's not normal. That's not you being sensitive. It's someone rewriting your reality for their own gain. And the sooner you identify that, the sooner you can start to reclaim your voice, your truth, and your peace. Stay with me. We've uncovered 2 major signs so far, and the next one might be the most chilling yet. Let's keep going. 3. Lack of empathy and emotional depth. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine playing a beautiful piece of music on the piano. You're pouring your heart into every note, and sitting across from you is someone watching your hands move, but they don't hear a thing. They see the motions. They see others reacting, but they feel nothing. That's what it's like trying to connect emotionally with a psychopath. They can observe emotion, they can study it, they can even mimic it to perfection, but they can't feel it the way you and I do. This is sign number 3, a profound lack of empathy and emotional depth. Now, this can be confusing because from the outside, they often appear charming, even attentive. They might say all the right words when you're going through something difficult, but if you listen closely, something's off. It's like they're reading from a script. There's no warmth, no resonance, just empty sympathy. And over time, that emotional hollowness begins to show in subtle and disturbing ways. You may notice it when you're upset, and instead of comfort, you're met with irritation. You're crying, and they're checking their phone. You open up about your past, and they either dismiss it or twist it into a joke later. These aren't just moments of insensitivity. They're glimpses into a mind that doesn't register human emotion the way it should. To a psychopath, people aren't people. They're tools, objects, means to an end. You're either useful or you're in the way. There's no in between. That's why their reactions can feel so out of sync with reality. They may laugh when others are in pain, roll their eyes when you're grieving, seem bored when you share something deeply personal. And if you've ever been in a relationship with someone like this, you know the emotional confusion it creates. At first, it might seem like they're just emotionally reserved, or maybe a little awkward. But over time, the pattern becomes clear. They can't connect because there's nothing there to connect with. They don't build lasting bonds. Every relationship has an expiration date, whether it's a friendship, a romantic connection, or even family ties. Eventually, they lose interest, or the mask slips, or your pain becomes too inconvenient for them to fake concern any longer. And here's the cruelest part. When you finally let your guard down, when you tell them about your insecurities, your childhood, your heartbreak, they remember it, not to love you better, but to use it against you later. That fear you shared in a quiet moment, it becomes ammunition in an argument. That traumatic experience you trusted them with, they throw it back at you when they need power. This isn't just emotional immaturity. This is emotional warfare. And if you try to call them out, if you ask for empathy, accountability, or even just a genuine response, you'll often be met with deflection, or mockery, or total silence. They don't reflect. They don't apologize. They don't grow. Why? Because they don't believe there's anything wrong with them. You may find yourself feeling lonelier with them than you do when you're alone. That's the most painful part, because the one place you're supposed to feel safe becomes the very source of your emotional erosion. So how do you recognize this sign before it drains you? Ask yourself, do I feel heard or just tolerated? Do they respond to my emotions or analyze them like data? Do they show up with presence or just go through the motions? Because real empathy feels like connection. It feels like warmth, like someone sitting in the darkness with you, not trying to fix it, just being there. If you're constantly feeling emotionally invisible, if your pain is met with annoyance or apathy, if you sense that someone is studying your feelings but never truly sharing them, take a step back. You might be dealing with a person who lacks empathy and emotional depth, and that's not someone who can truly love, support, or care for you. It's someone who sees your emotions as a vulnerability to be exploited, not honored. The most dangerous wounds aren't always the ones that bleed. Sometimes it's the silent ones, the emotional voids, the subtle dehumanization, the absence of true connection that leave the deepest scars. And that's exactly why we need to talk about this. Stay with me, because in the next section, we're going to expose one of the most financially and emotionally devastating patterns that psychopaths use to destroy lives: their parasitic lifestyle. Let's keep going. Your awareness could be your greatest defense. Fourth, parasitic lifestyle and exploitation. Have you ever had someone in your life who always seemed to need you, but somehow you ended up drained, depleted, and wondering how it all got so out of balance? At first, it probably felt like you were just being a good friend, or a loving partner, or someone who simply wanted to help someone going through a rough patch. But slowly, the favors turned into expectations. The generosity turned into obligation. And your resources, your time, your money, your energy, started disappearing without ever being replenished. This brings us to sign number 4, a parasitic lifestyle and systematic exploitation. Now, let me be clear. This isn't just someone who's going through a tough time and needs a little help. This is someone who operates with the belief that your life exists to serve theirs, that your success, your compassion, your stability are all theirs for the taking. And they're not random about it. There's a pattern to how they operate. Idealize, devalue, discard. In the beginning, you're everything they've ever wanted. You're amazing, inspiring, the best thing that's ever happened to them. They'll compliment your strengths, lean into your kindness, and build trust quickly. Then comes the shift. Once they've gained access, whether that's to your home, your finances, your emotions, they slowly start to chip away at your self-worth. Subtle criticism, comparisons to others, making you feel like you owe them just for being in their life. And when they have taken everything they want, they leave, just like that. Often at your lowest, when you're emotionally raw, financially entangled, or mentally exhausted. Gone, no closure, no remorse, and usually on to their next target without skipping a beat. Psychopaths don't see people as people. They see supply chains. Your compassion becomes their leverage. Your empathy, their ATM. Your achievements, a vehicle for their convenience. They'll tell you they need help with an investment opportunity, except the business doesn't exist. They'll convince you to co-sign a loan they never intended to pay. They'll fabricate emergencies, always just urgent enough to make you act fast without asking questions. And here's the trap. They don't ask for help. They frame it as if it's mutual. We're building a life together. This is for our future. Just help me this once and I'll pay you back next week. But that week never comes. And the more you give, the more they take. Without shame, without boundaries, without gratitude. What's even more disturbing is who they target. They don't go after everyone. They look for people with big hearts, people who give the benefit of the doubt, the recently divorced, the grieving, the successful, the emotionally generous. They know how to find the people who are most likely to say yes, even when they're being exploited. And it doesn't happen all at once. It starts with something small. Can I crash for a few nights? Then, can you spot me for rent this month? Before you know it, they've taken over your space, drained your savings, and blurred every line you use to hold firm. You wake up one day and wonder, how did I get here? And when you finally draw the line, when you say enough, they don't beg, they don't apologize, they just move on. Like you were a pit stop, a resource, a host that's now been depleted. What they leave behind is more than just an empty bank account or a spare bedroom. They leave behind self-doubt, shame, a broken sense of trust, not just in others, but in yourself. Because deep down, you're asking, how did I let this happen? But that's the thing. They don't just take your money, they take your clarity too. So how do you recognize this behavior before it's too late? Ask yourself, is this person consistently taking more than they give? Do they make you feel guilty for setting boundaries? Does helping them always come at a cost to you? If the answer is yes, step back, because this isn't kindness, it's parasitism, and it will not stop unless you stop it. And if someone leaves you feeling empty, exhausted, or erased after they've gotten what they wanted, that wasn't love. That wasn't friendship. That was extraction. In the next section, we're going to talk about what happens when recklessness and irresponsibility become weapons of destruction, and how psychopaths leave a trail of chaos while blaming everyone but themselves. Stay with me. You're not just learning how to spot danger, you're learning how to reclaim your power. Fifth, impulsivity and irresponsibility. Let me ask you something. Have you ever known someone whose life felt like a non-stop whirlwind of drama, chaos, and excuses? One minute they're on top of the world, starting a new job, falling in love, moving to a new city. The next minute, everything's crashed. The job was toxic, the partner was crazy, the landlord was unfair, and somehow they were just the unlucky victim of it all. Sound familiar? This brings us to sign number 5, impulsivity and irresponsibility. Psychopaths aren't just dangerous because they lie or manipulate. Sometimes the most destructive thing about them is how they live entirely in the moment, with no concern for the consequences they leave behind. They crave constant stimulation. Boredom is unbearable to them, so they're always chasing the next high, the next thrill, the next adventure, the next person to charm or exploit. But there's no long-term vision, no follow-through, no accountability. They jump from job to job, relationship to relationship, city to city, never staying long enough to face the results of their choices. And when things inevitably fall apart, it's never their fault. You'll hear things like, my boss was threatened by me. My ex was just too emotionally unstable. The system is rigged against me. They construct these detailed, emotionally convincing narratives that cast them as the victim every single time. And they're so good at it that even you might start to question your judgment. You might find yourself saying, well, maybe they were misunderstood, or worse, apologizing for situations that had nothing to do with you. And that's the trap. They rewrite reality so well that you become the one cleaning up the mess. Taking responsibility, making the sacrifices, carrying the emotional burden, while they move on scot-free. And it doesn't stop there. If you dare confront them, if you hold them accountable for their behavior, you're likely to see a side of them you weren't prepared for. One moment, they're sweet, charming, even tearful. The next, they explode with rage, go ice cold, or disappear entirely. It's what some call Jekyll and Hyde behavior, a dramatic personality switch that leaves you completely off balance. One minute you feel close, the next you're walking on eggshells. And here's the heartbreaking part. Most of the people affected by these individuals aren't strangers. They're partners, family members, friends, co-workers, people who care, who believe, and who try to help. But in trying to help, they get swept into a storm they can't control and didn't cause. Over time, what begins as compassion turns into confusion, then exhaustion, and finally self-doubt. You start wondering, am I overreacting? Did I make things worse? Why can't I fix this? But you didn't create the chaos. You were just trying to survive it. That's the signature of this fifth sign, a trail of broken promises, abandoned responsibilities, and emotional wreckage, left behind like litter on a road they never planned to travel again. So how do you protect yourself? Look at the pattern, not the apology. Pay attention to actions, not explanations. And ask yourself, do I feel like I'm constantly covering for this person? Are they always starting over, but never changing? Do I feel guilty, confused, or anxious more than I feel safe or seen? If the answer is yes, it's time to take a step back. Because this isn't just bad luck or emotional immaturity. It's a behavioral pattern, one that will continue to create chaos until you decide to break free from it. You don't need to fix them, you need to protect you. Now that we've explored all 5 warning signs, let's talk about what to do if you recognize them in someone close to you. Because the next move could be the difference between years of damage and a future built on peace, clarity, and self-respect. Stay with me. The most important part is coming next. So now that we've walked through all 5 warning signs, let's pause for a moment and breathe. Because if any part of what you've heard today hit close to home, if it reminded you of someone from your past or someone in your present, you're not alone. Let's recap what we've uncovered. 1. Superficial charm and love bombing. They sweep you off your feet, but it's not connection, it's control. 2. Pathological lying and gaslighting. They distort reality so well, you start to question your own mind. 3. A complete lack of empathy and emotional depth. They can mimic feelings, but they don't actually feel them. 4. A parasitic lifestyle built on exploitation. They drain your resources and leave when there's nothing left. 5. Reckless impulsivity and zero responsibility. They create chaos, blame everyone else, and move on like nothing happened. Now here's the hard truth. You can't fix them. You can't love them into healing. You can't explain their impact enough times for them to suddenly grow a conscience. Because at their core, they don't see a problem. So the goal isn't to change them. The goal is to protect you. And that means running, not walking, away from relationships that show these patterns. Now I get it. Leaving is hard, especially when your emotions are tangled, your self-trust has been eroded, and part of you still hopes the person you met at the beginning might come back. But here's what self-protection can look like in real, practical terms. Limit contact gradually if you can't cut ties right away. Secure your personal information, your bank accounts, important documents, shared passwords. Build a support system of friends, family, or professionals who believe you and remind you who you are. And most importantly, don't feel the need to explain your exit. They'll twist your words, use them against you, or try to pull you back in. Just go, quietly, clearly, and confidently. And once you're out, start the healing, slowly, kindly. Acknowledge the trauma. Rebuild your boundaries, one small no at a time. Forgive yourself, not for what happened, but for staying longer than you wish you had, because you were doing your best with the knowledge you had at the time. And now you know more. Trust your gut, even if you can't explain it, even if no one else sees it. That uneasy feeling that something's off is reason enough to step back. You're not being dramatic. You're not overreacting. You're surviving. And your peace of mind, your safety, your emotional well-being, they're worth protecting without guilt, without permission, and without apology. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, whether it's a story, a lesson you've learned, or even just a moment of recognition. You never know who else might need to read your words. Share this video with someone who might be quietly struggling. And if you found value here, Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so we can keep growing stronger together. You're not alone in this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay grounded, stay aware, and most of all, stay free.